Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I actually wanted to talk about The Ones Who Live, and we have some updates here on the runtime and what the first episode is going to be called. So I want to get into all of that, discuss some of that, discuss what could happen in this episode and whatnot. So before going any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. So I'm getting this here from @TWalkingDWorld on Twitter, and the account actually referenced Rotten Tomatoes, which I went to go actually check Rotten Tomatoes, and it does say it right here actually that the first episode is titled Years. Now, I've been saying for a very long time, I think since, I think I've been saying this since, like, it's been a long time anyways, at some point after Rick left anyways, I was saying that I think the first episode of the Rick, at first it was like the first movie should be called this, or it was the first episode of this show should be called this, and then before that I was saying the final episode of The Walking Dead ever should be called Years Gone By. And so they're not necessarily going with that here for this episode. It's not called Years Gone By, but it is called Years. And so I think it's kind of close. I mean, it's kind of a reference, right? Like in the very first episode, it's called Days Gone By because it's been days since, I guess the apocalypse has happened. And it was like roughly, it was a month and a half it was in there. So it was days, but also it's kind of a reference to like all the good days are gone, bye-bye kind of thing, right? So to me, calling it Years, I think is just, it's a perfect title. I think it actually works because it has been years since we have seen Rick and Michonne. So to actually, just call it that for your first episode ever, I like that. I think that works really, really well. Now, I will say, it does say The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, Season 1, Episode 1. So that's very interesting. I don't know if they put that there because they kind of know there's going to be a season 2. There's a lot of interesting stuff with this show that I think is going to be revealed over the next month or so, month or two. Is the show going to be getting more than one season? And a lot of people who watch the episodes beforehand, like early reviewers and people who get screeners, are they going to be able to say, will they even get the final episode, or is it going to be screeners based off of a weekly basis? Are they just going to get one episode in advance, right? I think with this show, things could be a lot different. Like, I haven't heard anything in terms of screeners at all. I haven't seen anyone mention anything. And this show is premiering in just over a month, right? So it's interesting. We'll just have to wait and see where this goes, I guess, overall. But I do think that as of now, I do think there is a chance that this show could get a season 2. Only because I feel like if this was actually the end, they would be promoting it more, right? Like they would be promoting that fact. Like this is the end of Rick and Michonne's story, right? Like I feel like they would actually be saying come watch the end of Rick and Michonne's story. But they're not really promoting it like that. They're not actually saying anything. They're just saying this is this show kind of thing. And they're just kind of leaving it as is. If you noticed, in a lot of the promotion, they're not really saying it's a limited series anymore. They're just kind of calling it like a new series. The same thing as Daryl Dixon and Dead City. So I don't know. To me, I don't think things have changed overall. I still think it's more of like a limited series, but they're not really acknowledging anything about it. They're just kind of focusing on here's the show. And yeah, I don't know, until somebody says, no, this is just going to be it. And again, we're still not in the place where, someone can't say stuff like that, right? Like Andrew Lincoln, Denai Guerrera, they could promote this right away. They could actually appear on talk shows and stuff like that and promote this show. And during that, they could be asked, so is there going to be more? Can you do a season 2, or is this it? Is this the end for your characters? And they might just say, nope, this is it right here. This is whatever. And then we'll know basically at that point, right? So, because what else are they going to say? Obviously they're not going to confirm. They're not going to be nope, there could be more. The most we're going to get is, or we'll probably get either 2 answers. One, well, we'll have to wait and see. Or you're just going to have to watch to find out. Or 2, the other answer is going to be, no, this is it. This is the end. Which, if that's the case, I feel like this show is going to be way more important to watch, and this show's going to, it's going to be way more just massive in terms of having to watch this every single week, right? Because you're celebrating the end of these characters. So yeah, I don't know. As of now, it doesn't really feel like the end. Right now, it just kind of feels like there's this show coming out right away, and we'll just have to wait and see if people really like it, and then maybe they'll do a season 2. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting right now. But we also know the runtime for this episode here, and the runtime is 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I'm guessing that this is right here. This is for episode 1 here, season 1, episode 1. I'm guessing that this is right. I don't really have a reason to believe that this would be wrong. It's on Rotten Tomatoes here. Obviously some people may have watched the first episode, I'm guessing. And so, or at least they have sort of, I guess, the information about that first episode. So it's all sort of ready to go and all of that. And yeah, it's on here already. And so we have the runtime. It makes sense. We usually get the runtime about this distance beforehand. So to me, I totally believe it. 1.5 hours. That's actually insane. I will say though, this could include commercials and stuff too. So we don't necessarily fully know what this could be yet. This is just sort of the what the first episode is just going to be. It could be a time slot sort of thing on cable. Maybe that's how they got it on here, because it's very weird that it is specifically an hour and a half. That seems very like maybe they edited it and it just ended up being exactly an hour and a half, like an hour and 30 minutes. But I feel like this might be, including commercials. So I think the episode might be closer to like an hour to hour and 10 minutes. That's my guess anyways. Again, I could be totally wrong with that, but that's kind of what I'm guessing as of now. But an hour and a half, like if it ends up being that long, or even if it is like, including commercials, that is still a very long time for the first episode. And that tells me that they're going to be able to really get into a lot. And each episode is going to feel kind of more like an experience. And that's what I will say too. Like this, I guess, confirms it for the first episode. The following episodes might be a little different. Like at that point, we might get 45-minute episodes. And I feel like, if we're around there, like when I'm looking at Dead City and Daryl Dixon, some episodes were like 40 something minutes, right? But most of the episodes I would say were like 50 something minutes around there. With a lot of them being like around an hour. Like it was kind of ranging around there. It was definitely more than your typical Walking Dead episode. It was a little bit more, right? With The Ones Who Live, if it does sort of stay around that point, that also kind of, to me, leans more towards, I guess there could be a season 2, because it's just like, a standard whatever. But if every episode's an hour and a half, then I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is just going to be it then, because they're making every episode super long, right? But then again, you also have to look at it as, well, The Ones Who Live, if they do a season 2, are they filming this year? They're probably not filming this year, right? Like if they actually are going to be doing a season 2 for that show, they might film like next year in 2025, right? And then that show will come out likely in 2026 at some point. Because I think that the limited series part to it is still, very much going to be a big part to it, right? Like it's not going to be out every single year like Dead City and Daryl Dixon. I think it'll be out every just other year kind of thing. So yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot of, what is happening with Rick and Michonne. We're going to see, a big update as to what Rick's been up to this entire time. There's been teasers and stuff that have come out. There's a lot of new footage. I'm going to break that down in a separate video that will come out later on today. For this one here, I just kind of wanted to talk about this because it was kind of breaking news. I saw it last night, but I was way too busy. I couldn't do the video yesterday. So I want to do this one here, and then afterwards I'll focus on the other one and break down the new footage and all the new teasers that we got, because there's actually been a couple of them. So I might as well, I'll combine it all in one video. Then as well get to the Q&A tomorrow. We're at that point now where it is just getting very, very exciting. Like I think the excitement for the show overall is starting to build quite a bit. People are just in general very excited about this show, and specifically The Ones Who Live, which is kind of interesting. I've been seeing a lot of people who haven't watched The Walking Dead in a while be like, oh, I'm actually very, very interested in watching this show. And so, yeah, it being an hour and a half, I think that tells me that, first of all, I think in terms of what they're going to focus on with Rick, I think they're probably going to, focus a lot on what he's been up to kind of thing and seeing his life overall. I feel like in terms of an actual story, in terms of a cliffhanger and there being a threat of some kind, it's hard to kind of imagine at this point, because I think we're just going to see Rick having to kill walkers, this and that. And I feel like that first episode is really going to focus a lot on what Rick has been up to over the years, right? And there's probably going to be, a lot of time jumps and stuff. And I think that in the end, we'll see Rick in like the CRM outfit. And that's, where we're going to start in episode 2. That's kind of my prediction there, and I don't know if it's going to end in any way where Major General Beale is more of a threat to Rick. I think we might see him in episode 1, or I think we will see him in episode 1. But I think, that first episode's really just going to recap a lot of what is happening. They do need to make it more interesting. I'm just thinking about the people who haven't watched in a very, very long time. Like, for them to just like come out of nowhere and watch. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't care about the Rick and Michonne reunion that much. Like, I'm talking about people who haven't watched in a while. Obviously, we care. A lot of Walking Dead fans care, but I'm just talking about people who are just like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this. They stopped watching a long time ago, right? Like, they stopped watching when Glenn died or when Carl died. So for them, they don't even really know that Rick and Michonne have been like apart for so long. They don't know what that story is. And so if this show is just focused just on that part to it, then I think for a lot of people who are coming back into it, they might not be that excited about the show overall, because if that's the only story part to it, then that's not that exciting. And to me, honestly, that will also be part to it that I'm also not that excited about. Like, I am excited to see Rick and Michonne reunite. Like, honestly, that's my number one most hyped moment of the season. But when they first announced the Rick movie trilogy, like, I was excited for the whole thing. Like, at the time, I thought Michonne would be in the second movie, and then in the third movie, everyone else would show up, because I knew that she was probably going to show up at some point before everyone else. But I was more excited about like where Rick was going and what that could do, you know, like what the CRM arc was going to be like, if it was going to focus on Cure stuff and a lot of that. So I'm hoping that a lot of those story elements are here in the show, and that we actually see, you know, some really like messed up stuff with the Civic Republic military, and they get into a lot of that's a big part to the story, because that's going to make everything else more exciting, and then it's going to highlight that reunion and make that way more exciting, right? Like, if the show was just focused on them reuniting, I just feel like everything else is not going to feel like it matters that much, if you know what I mean. So like that's kind of my whole thing with it. Like, I want the story stuff, I want the villains and all that to be like the main driver for a lot of this here, but obviously the more emotional element on top of all of it being like Rick and Michonne's story, because I think it's going to be a full, complete story, and something that a lot of people that haven't watched in a very long time are going to really get behind. That's also going to be really interesting to see. Like, a lot of people haven't watched in a very long time, and so I wonder how they're going to feel seeing Rick and Michonne reunite. Will they care that much? Because again, they stopped watching around the time Glenn died or when Carl died. They don't really know, you know, and them being apart and what it's been like. And I wonder, you know, how that scene is going to be done. And I hope that they do it well. I hope that they can do it in a really, I guess, just amazing way, you know, similar to what happened in season 1 when Rick lost Lori and Carl, right? And he was trying to find them. That scene, you know, beforehand, it was only 2 episodes or whatever. And then in that episode, Rick found them, and it was just so emotional. Like, it was a very, very emotional episode. It still makes people very emotional to this day. So I hope that that scene is similar in that way, where you can actually make it very emotional, regardless if you haven't watched, you know, The Walking Dead in a long time. Just sort of like, you understand that it's been a long time, and wow, that you know, that's super sad and all that, but they're actually reunited and stuff, and wow, it's a really amazing scene kind of thing, right? So this first episode, to me, I think is going to be incredible. I can't wait to see it, but definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.